All right, welcome to another episode of Violent Minds. I am your resident private dick, Mark Chauppetta, and joining me is
Dr. Keith Ablow, our resident forensic psychiatrist, your resident forensic psychiatrist, sometimes your therapist.
You
I
know
wear
what?
many hats to cover the bald pate.
You come in handy, and I come to you in a new studio, set up a little home office here in my basement.
Really very nice.
Yeah, you know what? It was a gym that I had built. So, anyways, I'm here in my new office in my home. On the other side of the computer, which you can't see, is actually a sauna spa. So it's a gym I had made for my wife that she never used.
That happens. I mean, you invest in these things. You seem like somebody, though. I know you always are critical of your wife. Just kidding. But,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But you seem like someone who'd use something like that. You're so fit.
Well, I'm not as fit as I should be, but my wife wanted a home gym, so I set it up down here, and then she went and got a gym membership. So she realized that she'd rather leave the house to go to the gym than work out in the house. So I said, hey, look, let's just get the shit out of here and let me put a little home office in here. So she agreed. And my wife's really fit as well, and she works out when she can get there. And
now you're trying to make up for your criticism about installing the home gym, and then she didn't use it, and she didn't use the sauna. It's okay though. And
I use the sauna a lot, which is great.
Very good for you.
Joe Rogan's a big proponent of sauna steams, so I use it myself. I don't go as crazy as he does as far as heat. I'll go up to about $165, $170.
Right.
And it's only a 2-person, so it feels like it's hotter when you're in more of a condensed area. But it also has coals, and I ladle water on it, and then it can create the steam as well. So if you want dry heat or if you want steam heat.
You do live in something of a modest mansion. But I mean, it's nice for you. You've arrived at a certain place in your life where you walk out of your television studio over to your steam room, or perhaps over to the Peloton or some such thing. Or
I don't have a Peloton.
My Louis Vuitton punching bag, from the 1920s from Paris.
My wife asked me if I wanted to, we saw the commercial the other night, and she said, you want to get a Peloton so you can ride to some heavy chested girl's breasts jiggling in your face on the screen? I'm like, no, honey, I'm fine with yours.
There you go. Well, I have a physical therapist friend, interestingly enough, and I'm not getting down on Peloton, but she happened to say that one of the issues that she's seeing in people is that they get these bikes, and by the way, the bikes don't give, right? Like you're not moving around, right? And it can create, I guess, some orthopedic issues. But that, as an aside, I see that your T-shirt says "free."
Yes. So I want to get into this.
That you're free, or
I'm not.
a free person.
I'm free. Come and get me. So there's a big news story that's been going on the last couple of weeks, and those that know me. And that have followed Violent Minds, violentminds.com, know that I'm a big MMA buff, mixed martial arts, UFC, fighting, martial arts practitioner myself. So recently in the news, Cain Velasquez, who's a former 2 or 3-time UFC heavyweight champion, was arrested, charged with attempted murder, ABDW. So this is a shirt that says "Free Cain Velasquez." So
very nice. And
so there's a movement going on amongst a bunch of fighters.
I take it there's a reason that the man would be freed. He's innocent, or
well, yeah, and it's crazy circumstances. I think something that all of us, or many of us, or those of us that are parents, have probably ran through our brain. Mostly those of us that are parents of girls, have thought about. So anyway, so the UFC is getting behind Cain Velasquez. 50% of the proceeds of the shirts help go towards his legal defense. They just denied him bail. And
What's he accused of?
So attempted murder, ABDW. So basically, essentially, what happened was he went on a 11 or 12 mile high speed chase. He was chasing after one of his relatives. Now his relative, it was a 43-year-old man who was, against the advice of the district attorney's office, was released on felony child molestation charges of one of his young female relatives.
Got it.
Wasn't happy about the release, took law into his own hands, pursued him. He was in a vehicle with another family member, took a shot at the vehicle, didn't hit the person that he had intended on hitting, hit another relative, non-life threatening injuries, and eventually, was arrested. So, there's this whole debate, this whole argument. Even Joe Rogan went on the UFC telecast a couple of weeks ago and said that, he didn't do enough, that he should have hunted him down and just beat him to death. So this is a dilemma, and the argument is what
rather than letting the criminal justice system take its course, in other words, or
right. Well, and there's debates on that as far as the criminal justice system. In his eyes, the criminal justice system failed, and they let this gentleman out on the street when he shouldn't have been out on the street, and he had an ankle monitor and was supposed to, had certain restrictions, but that's not going to stop someone from possibly going out and repeating these crimes. So I guess the question is, what would you do as a father if this happened to your daughter? Now, you have a daughter, I have a daughter, and is there a possible defense for him that could kind of give him a temporary temporary insanity, where you get clouded, lose your mind because this is a family member. This is a guy that molested a young girl, and he thought that the legal system let him down, and he took matters into his own hands. So a lot of people are backing him because of this, because it's admirable in a way.
Well, so if I have the story right,
Yes.
This fellow has yet to stand trial.
Right.
He's pending trial. He's got an electronic monitoring device on. He might be facing, who knows, many years in prison. God knows what could happen to him in jail. So yeah, I have to disagree. I guess number one, I'm, burdened, if you will. You could call it burdened by the fact that I know that the people who do bad things in the world, invariably, in my experience so far, having evaluated murderers, rapists, assailants, very bad things happen to them, right? And so do I think that they should be killed? No, I don't think they should be killed. Now, this fellow, Cain is presuming he represents a threat to the community. I'm going to have to defend the community and people like my daughter. And he has his own story too, Cain Velasquez, right? So I'd want to know, well, why is it that you would feel temporarily even as though you have to act because someone, God forbid, could be harmed just like your daughter? And I suppose someone could, although the electronic monitoring bracelet goes a long way. So in both cases, I'd say, listen, it's worth burrowing down to the core of the life story of these people and saying to juries, hey, look, here's why this unfolded the way it did, and see if the juries can embrace that, in some way respond to it in what you might say is a more fair way. But can we, as a culture, as a society, empower people to be vigilantes? No, I mean, if my brother, I don't have a brother, so I'll pick a brother, were stupid enough, destructive enough, evil enough to prey upon a young girl, would I welcome someone shooting him? No, I'd want him kept from others so that others would be safe. I think there should be a price to pay for that. I wouldn't want him destroyed in prison or killed or strangled. I would say, look, there's some value to reclaiming people, even my brother who did this terrible thing. But I'm not someone who's, silly or, thinking like everything can be just fine. Most of these folks need lifetime monitoring. Most of them should be offered the option of Depo-Provera, which lowers sperm count to such an extent, lowers testosterone to such an extent.
So that's a medication?
It's a medication. I don't know why we don't use these things more frequently. Depo-Provera will lower your testosterone level to like 0. Right. And frankly, if you have preyed upon young girls or boys, if you've been a sexual offender, should you at least be given the option of, listen, we can either hold you for the rest of your life because we don't know if you're going to do this again, or you can do the electronic monitoring bracelet and home arrest, or you could do these injections.
So it's sort of like a medical, a pharmaceutical castration, I guess you could say.
Chemical castration, exactly.
Yeah. So anyways, it's like a chemical, suppression. And I mean, I'll tell you from experience that me being a former prison guard, and I worked in, with numerous types of criminals. I spent a short time, and also as a defense investigator, because a lot of my clients are sex offenders. Actually, I need to go in a few weeks to the treatment center here in Massachusetts, to which the sexual treatment center in Massachusetts,
Bridgewater.
Which houses sexually deviant criminals, and meet with a client there who was just identified through DNA on a cold case, cold rape.
Wow.
That's I don't really want to talk too much about it, but it's all over the media right now. But when I was a CO back in the day, back in the late 80s, early 90s, a correctional officer, I always found that the sexual offenders were easier to manage and easier to deal with as a correctional officer than the hardened criminals, because they were out of their element. They weren't, subject to that enticement of, what I guess brings out their criminal sexual desires. So they're easy to work with. They were better inmates, I guess you could say, because everything was locked away, and suppressed. And they were always like, I'm going to get out of here. When I get out of here, I'm going to change my life. And I always question that because, once you lead a horse back to water,
Well, and it is, and we know that people reoffend. And so again, I'm not Pollyannish about this. I think that in fact, the criminal justice system would do well to pivot toward a healthcare orientation. Why? Not because it's easy on crime, but because it's tougher. In other words, if you've demonstrated that your sexual orientation is that you like kids, we have to go with the science, I would say, respectfully to the folks who have committed those crimes. And we don't know if you're going to reoffend. So this idea that you're going to be jailed for 6 years and then you're going to be out on the streets with probation, but we don't watch you the rest of the time. Foolishness.
Well, they hope that they're getting the care and the treatment,
They get nothing.
And I've been in there, as an officer, and I've seen the type of care and treatment that they get, and they're doing very little with, especially with their social workers, and there's very little therapy I've seen over the years going on. But
it's simple. You surrender at that point your right to privacy. We have all the technology necessary for you to have to wear a wrist camera. And a little button that says you are being recorded. I wear a wrist cam or whatever, or wear a wrist camera that just points at you. Or wear one on your belt. Okay. And on your hands. And we have the technology. We should deploy it to say, and without hatred, because frankly, it's a terrible thing to be burdened by those kinds of desires as well. right? And
Yeah.
so
And,
thank
and
you very much. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, take
Yeah,
care. Uh, and, come over and do my shutters now. And sexual deviance, I guess, they lots of times they don't want to be committing the crimes that they're committing. They just can't fight that urge to not do it.
well, so we have to tell them that they have to fight that urge. And I have had clients who have those predispositions, who
Yeah.
have those urges and don't act on them.
Right.
I knew one fellow who was an electrician who wouldn't work during the summer for fear of bumping into a little girl in a bathing suit. Literally, he said, I can't go out.
Because
Pretty
he had
much.
desires to do something that was unnatural.
To literally abscond with, to kidnap a young girl, right? And so yes, and so when you think about it, that's heroic. Somebody who says, hey, I have to just suck it up and I have to like not go out during the summer because God forbid I see a 7-year-old in short shorts, right?
Right.
That's what we would expect of anyone with those desires.
Well,
However,
I see women with breasts all summer that are adult age, and I have enough internal strength to not go up and give the melons a squeeze.
right. I understand. Yes, you always put things so eloquently, poetically,
Because
even
murder,
poetically.
because murder would be committed soon after that. Even before the police came and arrested me, my wife would kill me.
Well, there's that, exactly. But, it's also the case that as I've delved into many of the lives of these people who do monstrous things, but are not monsters, but they do monstrous things. Monstrous things were done to them.
Right.
And I have yet to find someone who had a good enough childhood where you'd say, oh, I can't figure it out.
It's almost like, go back to Howard Stern, who, and every time he would have a stripper on, which was often before he, before he became woke, what was the question he would ask every single stripper? You know what that was?
Were you abused?
Right. Yeah. Were you molested?
Well, interestingly enough, I acted badly at a bachelor's party. Now, look, I try to be elevated and everything, but I've been to bachelor's parties.
Yeah.
And in this case, there was a dancer there, a stripper.
Yeah.
And because I tend to want to burrow to the core of everyone's life story,
Yeah.
I happened to talk with her. The other thing is that every man wants to talk for some reason to the dancer. It makes them special.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to be special. So I started talking to her and I said, what do you think about this work? Which is a standard question because you don't know what else to say. And she said, I love it. When I just started doing this, I just felt immediately at home. And I said, what was home like?
Yeah.
She started crying and left.
Really?
And yeah, the groom was like, what? You just ruined the whole thing. I said, I asked her one question about, she said that stripping made her think of home. I said, what was home like?
So was she one stripper that was hired to kind of work the room with the whole bachelor party?
Just dance.
Yeah.
Apparently, I didn't hire her because I don't.
So one stripper was hired to dance for the bachelor party, and then you tried to burrow into her past and you made her cry and leave.
Because I'm laser beam focused on pain. And I tapped into that reservoir of pain, but she gave it to me. How could I not go there? If someone says to you, when I started dancing naked,
she served it on a platter for you. She served that up. And then what you did was you weren't able to suppress your urges yourself,
to burrow. And so I took the silver platter and I turned it and held it like a mirror for her. Yeah. And she saw herself and she realized in that moment, what am I doing? how could I have said what I just said? That's true. I feel at home doing this because I was in some way exposed, vulnerable, taken advantage of at home. And I hope, hey, I hope it was a turning point for her. Who knows?
Either that or
Not
she
that I'm
went in the
saying
back.
that there shouldn't be adult entertainment. I think people should do what they want. I'm like a libertarian.
Yeah.
But still, people come to these things with their own histories that make them do them.
What if she went home and, and did some heroin and died?
Now I feel better. Thank you. You're like a breath of fresh air. I can always rely on you. Here I am trying to, what did I do? I posited a scenario in which I had healed the stripper. And you say, yeah, well, then again, Keith, she may have offed herself in the next several minutes, getting back to Lawrence, Mass, doing a bunch of heroin on the street with some pusher in Lawrence.
The moral of that story was, just like the guy that can't go to the beach during the day, there's a time and a place for everything. That wasn't your time and place to, to turn the mirror around. That was your time and place to enjoy a nice lap dance and to suspend reality and enjoy the moment.
I know, but I'm not good with that. That's why I get invited to very few dinner parties, because someone will say to me, like, I'll be seated next to someone in a very nice blazer, and I'll be like, hey, how's everything going? Great. Everything's great. I'm like, dude, I saw you walk in with your wife, right?
Yeah.
Married. Like, everything's not all right.
Right.
And he'll be, well, no, I mean, not everything. Well, come on, tell me. We're just on the appetizer. We have a lot of time. By the way, the worst, I didn't even try this. I was seated on a cross-country trip next to a fellow, and he very, very nice man. I didn't pay for the flight, so it happened to be first class. I would never pay for first class. But anyhow, so he says, what do you do? And I said, oh, I'm a psychiatrist. And I kind of let that die, I hoped.
Yeah.
And he said, I've never told anyone this.
Oh, boy.
I'm like, okay, what's that? My mother had sex with me when I was a boy.
Cut it out.
Yeah. And so he went on to say, thanks again, man.
No problem.
He went on to say, so let me try that again.
Next time you need to move your fucking chair away from the stairs.
I know, exactly. He went on, here, let's see. He went on to say that when you're male and your mother does that with you, it's even more psychologically like, a labyrinth, because of course he had to be quote unquote excited, not excited, but physically excited in order to,
even rape victims get excited. They can't help it. It's a natural
thing. But when you're male, it's like, okay, it's undeniable. Like, I feel like I participated, he said. It's very hard for me. Well, hard, sorry.
Yeah, no pun intended.
Hard for me. Yeah. But anyhow, so here we are on a 6-hour flight, and I did 6 hours with him.
6 hour set. Was he in tears?
For part of it, yeah. But I think really we made some significant progress. But what are you going to do?
What did he do for a living? You remember?
Yes, I do remember. And this won't be an identifier, because there are lots of such people. He was a doctor.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. And did you send him?
And his name was, no, just kidding. Yeah.
Did you send him a bill?
No, I didn't send him a bill. I gave him my card, and I didn't hear from him thereafter. But, I felt like, geez, I mean, how do you deny the universe's, quirks and quote coincidences? Like, you can't really withhold from a guy who says, I've never told, he seemed very sincere, not playing me. I've never told anyone this, and it's weird that we'd be seated next to each other. I'm like, it is, it is weird, but it isn't, because that's.
Do you think if you had told him, if you didn't open that door, it's like me sometimes, what do? I'm a private investigator. I'm like, I know as soon as I say that, because it's a unique, interesting career, that people are just going to jump on it. They're either going to say, I've always wanted to do that work, or they're going to be intrigued and they're going to want, so lots of times I'll say it because, yeah, I like the attention and I like to talk. But what if you had just said you were a plumber? You think he would have talked to you about,
You never know, right? Because you can't A/B test these things. You never know.
Yeah.
I don't think so, but something about, hey, doctor to doctor, and this is under the cone of silence, etc. Now back to the Cain matter, free Cain Velasquez.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Don't you?
He's facing 20 years now.
Did the man die that he
No,
shot?
the injuries were non-life threatening. So being a criminal defense investigator, the Commonwealth or the state of California where he is arrested, they may not have much. What I guess is going to happen is that the family's not going to want to go forward after the smoke clears, after the dust settles. The gentleman that was just kind of the collateral damage of everything, the guy that was just riding in the car with the released child molester, is the one that took the bullet. He shot the wrong guy.
Yeah, that's a problem.
The felon that's facing, his day in court for the molestation, he now is a witness of this. So,
well, and we don't know. I mean, sitting here, haven't we learned enough that sometimes cases aren't what they are made out to be? I mean, we are presuming that this man's guilty. Someone's presuming that. Certainly, Cain Velasquez is presuming that this man, Cain Velasquez?
Yeah.
I'm thinking Zelensky, sorry. Cain Velasquez is presuming that this man is guilty.
He's guilty.
But he didn't plead guilty.
Day in court yet.
He hasn't had his day in court. We cannot have people, as much as I'm sure he's a popular guy and he has lots of fans. We can't have people trying to kill defendants.
Only accused at this point. He is entitled to, and I shouldn't be defending this because I am a criminal defense investigator. I do this for a living, but
so why would we free Cain Velasquez?
Because the narrative is, as a parent, we all would do this to a person that molested one of our family members. So there's
if he did molest his family member, if he did, and if it isn't enough to be on a sexual offender registry and have your life decimated and go to jail for a decade and be potentially sexually assaulted, like this Yahoo needs to take matters into his own hands and be like a strong man and be like, no, I'm gonna fucking kill him. Dude, shut the fuck up. Right. And by the way, he's just a human being too. And so if Cain wants to talk to me free of charge, I would say, look, you want to know why you did this? Your lawyer wants to know why you did this. I'm not charging you. I'm not testifying for you, but here are some things that somebody should look into as to why you too couldn't control yourself.
Right. Yeah. And they didn't release him on bail because they saw him as a danger to society. So they had a dangerousness hearing. And I guess their argument was, who's to say he's not going to go back out and try to finish what he didn't get done. Now, I got the shirt just for the so we could have a good conversation on the Violent Minds podcast. ViolentMinds.com. Check out me. Check out Dr. Keith Ablow. We're gonna have to update the website with your new website.
Wait, are we done?
No, I'm just throwing a plug. I'm throwing a plug.
Oh, you're just throwing in a plug like that. Yeah.
Show. Yeah. I mean, come on, the routine.
KeithAblow.com. Keith Ablow.
We're gonna change it up and throw that on there. Your new website, KeithAblow.com. I saw it. Great website.
Thanks, pal.
But should Cain Velasquez face 20 years? It's up to 20 years. He's not going to face 20 years. They'll probably they'll probably plea him down or something. End up just charging him with ABDW, reckless driving, because he drove for 11 miles a high-speed chase, which is putting other people's lives in danger. 11 miles chasing this guy to fire. Now, 11 miles is a long time to be able to possibly have an epiphany and come back to reality and say, what the fuck am I doing?
That's the problem, is that, it doesn't, having testified a lot in these matters,
Yeah.
did he lack the ability to conform his behavior to the requirements of the law, which would be part of an insanity plea? But
Right.
he wasn't insane, but there may well be reasons. And by the way, what does a psychiatrist think at moments like this? What would you wonder? Okay, I don't know Cain, right? If Cain had a history of, and I don't know him, if he had a history of being abused himself, that would be fascinating, right? And a reason why he might have been, quote, explosive, even explosive for 20 miles.
Yeah.
Right.
He's also a cage fighter, Keith. He's Latino, and I'm not sure if he had.
What is his Latino heritage?
Because he has a tattoo on him that has some gang affiliation. So I don't know if he had a gang life prior.
Probably. I mean, this story gets worse and worse for poor Cain. You're burying him. Give him $50 for a t-shirt or whatever that costs. And then you're like, look, this guy's a gang member who drove 40 miles, shot the wrong guy. We don't even know if the defendant's guilty.
But free him.
Cain's been hit in the head so many times. Who knows if this guy did?
That is another defense.
Yes. All right. So head trauma.
CTE,
impulsivity, right? Was he a victim himself? Listen, anybody who joins a gang, potentially, we don't know if he did or he didn't.
I don't know if he did or he didn't.
Anybody who becomes a cage fighter like you, they have their own demons. I mean, this is no secret. Like, the guy's fucked up. I mean, the clinical term.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I say that lovingly because if you ask him enough questions, much like the dancer I alluded to, who I said, said I love dancing at home, and I said, what was home like?
One that killed herself?
She's now a neurosurgeon at Mass General. No, I don't know. It's funny, some comedian once said, he said, why is it? It was like David Brenner or something. He's like, why does every centerfold, like in Playboy magazine, when they used to have them, right? Yeah. You open it up and it says like career path, neurosurgeon. It's like, it's never like waitress. It's like, they're all nuclear physicists. They're all like, but anyhow, so listen, I mean, obviously Cain has a life history that led to that shooting. And by the way, just so that my prejudice and passion for people will be made known, that shooting was a freight train coming down the tracks. That was gonna happen
either way,
absent insight-oriented psychotherapy, right? If he had someone working with him for 2 years or 2 months of his life, 2 months if it's me, 2 years if it's a lesser being, right? 2 months with me during his life, and I would have been able to give him the narrative and say, dude, you better be careful, okay? Because you have tripwires in your brain, given what you've lived through. You're probably sitting here right now saying, I would never kill anybody. I'm a trained fighter. I go in the ring and I turn it off after the time runs. But you know what? Given what you've been through with God knows what, your father, your mother, your brothers, school, the streets, dude, you have a store of rage, a cauldron inside you. You better tell me what happened to you. You better tell me how much it hurt, or you're going to hurt somebody.
Right. Yeah. It sounds like, someone like yourself that can pull up the past is a great tool when it comes to identifying why we do things in our life, whether it's criminal or not. Specifically heinous criminal crimes. Most of that stuff's not really premeditated. Like there's a reason behind it. There's a reason down to the core, but is that enough of a reason in the criminal justice system to be able to, cut them some slack or get them the treatment they need, as opposed to just throwing them away and locking them up and throwing away the key.
Well, that's why I say, as a social philosophy, which might even be interesting to say, the any attorney general or any U.S. attorney, lock the hospitals and close the prisons.
Yeah.
In other words, my best attempt to deal with violent crime in America would be to say, listen, you can't leave. Just so you got your sentence, you can't leave, but we'll be treating you here with respect and kindness.
Yeah.
And we'll be burrowing to the core of why you did this. And we're going to offer you some ways to mitigate the likelihood, which is likely, that you're going to do it again, whether it's assault or it's stealing or it's whatever. So we've got some things that might help you. You're a drinker. We can put you on antabuse. That makes it simple. If you drink on antabuse, you might die.
Right.
Okay. But every time you've committed a crime, you're drunk. Okay. Right. Do you want to take this medicine? And we're not even using these things. We can reduce testosterone levels. We can make people 100 times less likely to drink. We can give people fish oil and curcumin in prison, and their violent tendencies will plummet because the brain is less inflamed. Yeah.
What's the second part? What's curcumin?
Curcumin is derived from a spice called turmeric. I'm actually issuing a press release today saying we should be distributing this like in the water. I'm literally doing a press release.
It's not a prescribed medicine. It's an all natural.
It's an herb. It's a spice.
So that with fish oil will do what? Will help it will decrease my ego.
Number one, it will fight any mood troughs, any depression.
Really?
But secondly, in terms of aggressivity, there's good evidence that if you were to treat a prison population, I can guarantee you, I'll stake, oh wait, my license, shoot. I was going to say my medical license, so much for that. Anyhow, yeah. Now I can laugh about it.
Yeah.
But if you were to treat a prison population with fish oil and curcumin, the rate of violence in prison will decline significantly. Why? Because a lot of aggressivity and violence anywhere in prison and elsewhere is due to central nervous system inflammation, literally inflammation in the brain. And these things dramatically reduce it. In fact, when they do trials of curcumin derived from the spice turmeric, an Indian spice, when they pit curcumin, double-blind study, you don't know if you're taking curcumin or Prozac.
Yeah.
They're the same. The results are the same.
So you don't need the prescribed medicine. You can get away with it with the homeopathic. I mean, I believe in a lot of homeopathic things. I think another thing that would be good. I know you said lock the
hospitals, close the prisons.
Hospitals, close the prisons. Another thing, and this is not for the sexual deviant, but is what are they, congregal visits, having someone come in and, I mean, that's probably the reason why they allow that for many years, because of that physical contact or being able to have that release.
Well, I'm sure. Yeah, that makes some sense. I mean, why would you want
certain people, for certain inmates,
certain inmates? Sure. I don't know why they don't use house arrest more now that there are electronic monitoring systems. I mean, why are we?
Because they don't have the manpower to pick them up, if there's issues.
Got it.
I mean, that could be one of the things. So, all right, well, free Cain. We know Keith's opinion. I'm, you kind of swayed me a little bit here. I grabbed the shirt, more of a conversational piece. I want to shift to something that happened to me this weekend before we wrap up the show. I had
what happened?
I had a very uncomfortable experience this weekend. Rather humorous, but rather uncomfortable. So my wife and I, Janice and I, we go out to a local restaurant here in Marsh, Vegas, then Marshfield, Mass, down by the water. Nice Italian restaurant. We're sitting at the bar, and the end of the bar, there's a gentleman to the right of me. He was somewhat liquored up, worked for the tea. One of those guys that kept like elbowing me when he was talking to me. A couple of years older. It was just, he was drunk. He was annoying,
Yeah.
but we're shooting the baloney. Another couple comes over to our right. Another couple sits down to our left. We're all talking. We all realize we know people that know people. We're all sort of connected because most people from these small little hick towns know someone who knows someone. So I'm talking to the gentleman to my left, and he tells me he's a postal carrier. And he's retiring in a month. So I'm congratulating him, tells me the town he works in, which happens to be the town I grew up in. We have mutual friends, blah, blah, blah. Talking to his wife a little bit when my wife went to the bathroom. So I'm, I had a better angle of her. She's talking about how she's a nurse at a Boston hospital. So of course it's the same hospital my kids are treated at. So we're making, this nice small talk, having a great time on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And, then she leans over to her husband and whispers.
Okay.
And he says to me, "Did you once run for state representative?"
Wow.
And I said, "Yes." He goes, and she goes, "I thought so." She go, "So you have twins that have muscular dystrophy, right?" I go, "Yeah." And then she's like, "Well," this is when it got ugly. She goes, "Well," and and then he goes, "Do you remember meeting me and my mother 20 years ago at this local coffee shop? We hired you to find my birth mother because our daughter had just got diagnosed with some illness, with diabetes.
Yeah.
And we paid you $1,000 and you never did the job."
Wow. 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
Wow.
And I'm like getting sweaty. And I'm like, he's like, "You don't remember me?" I go, "How the fuck would I remember you?" I go, "It's easy for you to remember me. I was running for rep. I had signs everywhere. I'm all over the media." I go, "But to be honest with you, I don't remember you. But I will tell you this, that I've been in business for 30 years. And she's like, "Well, we were a referral from a local police officer." I said, "Well, you're just stating my case more, because I would never screw someone over that gave me money. And first of all, if it was a referral from a local cop that I pride my relationships on with my business, I wouldn't have screwed him over." I go, "And since I can't remember you and I can't remember the case, because it's similar to you as a nurse, do you remember every fucking patient you've taken care of?" I go,
Right.
"So if I can't remember, then therefore I can't defend myself."
Right.
So
Right.
you can't accuse me of doing something because I don't even remember. And I go, there has to be a story behind it. Probably I did the work. I was unable to come up with what they wanted. They probably weren't happy. And I gave him a report and told them that, you know what? Sorry.
You're
That's,
such a good guy. You're such an earnest fellow. Number one, I can't imagine that for a second that would have occurred. But you also didn't do what I would have done, which is to say, no, I remember this very specifically. You owe me $3,000. It was a $4,000 invoice. I did all kinds of work for you.
Yeah.
And I can't believe I found you. This is never going to end now.
Right. Yeah. And I've been racking my brains, and I go, the only thing I can really think what happened was that this guy's mother who paid the bill, his mommy paid the bill.
Yeah.
It's probably just difficult to deal with. He goes, "I remember leaving you a couple of messages and you didn't get back to me, and you were running for state reps.
Wow.
You were probably too busy." And I'm thinking to myself, wow, you've really been harboring some fucking. And then she goes, "Well, it's okay, because I subscribed to Ancestry.com after that, and I found his birth mother." I said, "Well, maybe you should be a private investigator."
Wow. Well, so did it end affably or not so affably?
You know what? I'm like, "Janice, pay the bill, pay the bill. Let's get the fuck out."
Pay their bill too.
Right. Yeah. Well, so no, it was fine. And I was leaving, he shook my hand and she whispered to my wife, "It's all good. It bothered me." I'm like, 20 fucking years ago. He goes, "You look different."
Ridiculous.
No shit. I had a full head of hair 20 years ago.
Ridiculous.
So-
Wow.
so-
Well, I'm glad you didn't kill him.
well, yeah, and he was, yeah. So during the conversation, he had told me of a mutual friend that we both know, and I didn't get his name, or he may have said he did say his name. I just didn't register and I forgot. So when I got home, I texted our mutual friend and I said, "Hey, who's this postal carrier that's retiring in a month that works at this post office? What's his name?" She's like, "So and so, great guy." I said, "Yeah, he seemed like a nice guy." I said, "Thanks." So then I ran him on my database and I got his home address. And I'm gonna go out and buy him like a $200 gift card to a restaurant and write him a little note and say, "Hey, look, I'd never screw anyone over, but
That's nice.
I feel bad for the situation. Dinner's on me." So
Well, that's nice. Yeah, that's nice. Plus, I do think there's always light in the darkness. There's some reason you met this fellow, and there's some reason that this is all getting worked out, which is your job to figure out. You're a private investigator, so am I in a certain way.
yeah,
And something in this story bears some further investigation. Like, for some reason, they have a lot of energy with you, and they haven't forgotten you for 20 years. And you should maybe just say that to him. I started thinking after meeting you, we've been connected for like 20 years.
yeah,
I wonder why. Like, granted, there was this thing with the 1,000, and now you've got the $200 gift certificate, and your
Yeah.
mother paid anyhow. But I wonder, I don't know, if something occurs to you that I might be able to help you with, or if for some reason you need to find me, now you know how to find me. Here's my card.
Yeah.
Because people don't remain connected for 20 years for nothing and then bump into each other at a bar. That was the universe scripted that.
yeah.
Why? The question is why. The question is always why.
Well, when I was walking out, I said, "Well, how are your children? How is your daughter and how's everyone?" And he's got two girls that were little then. Now they're in their 20s. He goes, "They're great. They're not married." I said, "Well, maybe." I go, "Maybe someday, you'll need a background on their boyfriends, or even better, we'll do a background on their boyfriend's parents." And he started. I was just trying to like crack some jokes and make some light.
Don't make one of these girls your third wife.
No,
No, because that's where I feel like this is going.
No, a 21-year-old
after 20 years. And what do you end up talking about? He's like, "Oh no, everything's good now, and I have two daughters. They're not married." And it's like, all you had to say was, "Well, Janice is in the ladies' room. We're not that happy." Right.
Yeah.
And off you go. There's your father-in-law. Met him at the bar.
That's my father-in-law.
You'll pay 1,000 toward the wedding,
Yeah.
and you'll be even.
Right.
Even
I'm not giving you a gift.
So listen, so I'll tell you my own, such that you may, I don't know, it may not be a good quality of mine, but, you were very straightforward with him. You're like, "Look, I doubt that. I don't cheat people. And anyhow, blah, blah, blah." But I was walking my beagle some time ago on the beach on Plum Island, which you're not supposed to do until October. And I think it was September, but I lived on the beach.
Yeah.
Where am I to walk my dog? I was always very careful. Some woman came up to me and said, "You're not supposed to, by law, you're not supposed to walk your dog on the beach until October."
Yeah.
And I said, "I run into this all the time." And she's like, "What? People criticize you, yell at you?" I said, "No, well, yes, but I run into it." I said, "Because this animal looks very much like a dog, but is not. And I've actually submitted DNA down at town hall. This is actually a new kind of animal that I procured. It's genetically engineered." So she's listening to me and listening to me. Then she goes, "Fuck you and your dog." So anyhow, but you could have, maybe you should have just said, "Hey, that was that was my twin, and who died."
Right.
But
Yeah, he was an asshole.
Anyhow, so
my wife's like, "Hey," she goes, she goes, "There's never a dull moment with me," because I know a lot of people, and it's like you, I go out there and I'm social, And this is the first time it's happened in 20, I've been in business over 30 years. It's the first time it's ever happened to me. And it was like, I got sweaty and like, I was like I ate spicy food and I'm like, oh boy,
Yeah.
I was.
Wow, amazing. So yeah, just amazing, really. Now on the free, I don't want to end without doing a little bit of poetry on Cain Velasquez.
Cain Velasquez.
Cain Velasquez.
Yes.
Because free Cain Velasquez is absolutely true. The question is, free him from what? And I would posit, postulate, theorize, or otherwise put forward. Those are all synonyms. I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm like a fucking thesaurus today. I would suggest, there you go again, that that Cain needs to be freed from something. Perhaps not from incarceration at this very moment, but I hope he is, frankly, free as long as he's safe.
Yeah.
But free from some dynamic that would lead him on a 20-mile chase armed with a handgun to shoot or try to shoot a man who has been accused of a crime but not found guilty of a crime. Here's my initial, I've never talked to Cain. I don't know Cain. What I would say is Cain was geared up because someone in his life who is guilty of something got away with it. And it was probably when Cain was, I'm thinking, 9 to 11 years old. I'm just, in other words, these things come to me, right? I'm insane.
You're just throwing a little bit of sugar on the Cain.
That beautifully said.
Yes.
But I would say to Cain, my first question would be, dude, when you shot at that car, who were you really shooting at? And he'd say, well, no, I was trying to hit the guy who's accused of the crime. I'd say, no, Cain, it's me, Keith. Who were you trying to shoot? And the person was not in the car, dude. Okay. Who has been let go free? Who's a guilty man in your life? That's what we have to ask him. And the jury should hear that too.
100%. They should bring you in as an expert, and we should take a trip out to the
expert life coach. Do they have those things?
Yes, and we should take a trip out to the state of California.
Yes,
yes,
they do.
Yeah, that's me. I'm an expert life coach.
All right, expert life coach.
On
Excellent.
that note, we got to wrap up. And make sure you check out violentminds.com. You can decide whether you want to free Cain Velasquez or not. If you are a disgruntled former client of On the Mark Investigations, please reach out to me. If you're a former disgruntled client of Dr. Keith Ablow, please
sue me like everybody else. Just
please reach out to the New York Times.
Exactly. They'd be happy, or the Globe, happy to do a front page article above the fold about your complaints.
You got it. Everyone, you take care, and we'll see you on the next episode. Keith, you hang on. Take care, everyone.